That's working. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Where Are We Now? Episode number 207. We'll go live in just two.
So this is a sound check, yes?
Yeah, this is a sound check. Make sure you can see and hear us. Okay.
And we're really excited to have a special guest with us today.
A good old friend of ours, indeed.
Oh, I guess I have to click on it. Duh. Looks like it's there.
Okay. Do.
Do I need to keep it playing? Is that
up to you.
As long as I don't have any sound going out. Okay. All right. Okay. Sound is good, Warren says. Thank you.
Always good to know. And it is 2:00, and it's time for episode number 207 of What Does This Button Do? Wow. It's an educational show about smartphones and technology with us Geeks on Tour. And if you think about it, go ahead and click on like and subscribe to our channel. That would be really great.
If you're watching it on YouTube, you could also be watching it on our Facebook page.
That's true,
right?
Too, yeah. So we're going to be talking about data privacy today, and it should be a kind of a good show, I hope. And
different topic for us.
Yeah, we have
which is why we have our guest on, who you will meet in just a bit.
In just a bit. So we have a quick tip. Chris, what do you have there?
Well, it has to do with privacy, and it has to do with Facebook. If you are a Facebook user, we think you should make your friend list private. And here's a little video to tell you about that.
Hi, this is Chris Gould with Geeks on Tour. And in this video, I want to show you how to make your Facebook friend list private. First, I'm going to show you how, and then I'm going to tell you why. So what I'm talking about is your privacy settings in Facebook. You just go to Facebook, you'll find your settings in the upper right-hand corner under this little drop-down arrow, and choose Settings and Privacy. Now, I recommend that you go through the privacy checkbook and the checkup and the privacy shortcuts, but I just want to take you straight to the setting I'm talking about. So I go to Settings, and then Privacy, and then how people find and contact you, who can see your friends list. This is the one I'm talking about. I have mine set to only me. Let me show you the other choices. You click on Edit, and then the little drop down. If you have never been here, this is set to public, meaning anybody can see your friend list. I recommend setting it to anything but public. If you want other friends to see your current friends, that's fine. I have it set to only me so that nobody else can see it. Now, why do you want to do this? Well, have you ever gotten a friend request from somebody who is already your friend? I'll bet you have. It happens a lot. And we've been preaching this, keeping your friend list private, for many years, but the scam is still going on. Here is how it happens. Pretend that I'm the scammer, and I go to Facebook, and I can, and I'm just going to my home page now, and I'm just going to search for some random name. I'm going to search for Joe Brown. And I see a Joe Brown. I click on him. And if I click on friends of Joe Brown, look at this. I see dozens, maybe hundreds of people here, and I can add them as friends. Now, if I do that right now, I am adding, they will get a friend request from Chris Gould. But so the first thing the scammer has to do, all you have to do is copy this photo of Joe, make a new account with the same name, Joe Brown. Now you can come here and start adding friend requests. Then for the people who accept your friend request, you'll send them a urgent message that you need money and you're stuck in Timbuktu or something. So that's why you don't want your friend list to be public. Now, how do you see if you what yours is looking like right now? Well, if I go to my profile page, I just click on my name in the upper right. Here I am in my profile page. If I click on friends right now, I will see all my friends. Why? Because I'm me. I get to see all my friends. You click on this little button right here, this eyeball, it says view as. When you click that, I am now viewing my profile as if I was a member of the public. So now I click on friends. So if anybody else opens Facebook, goes to my profile and clicks on friends, they see nothing. That's the idea. It's a simple setting in Facebook. Just make your friend list private and you are no longer susceptible to being scammed by somebody cloning your Facebook profile and messaging all your friends.
All right.
All
Pretty
right.
cool.
Yeah, I do think everybody who uses Facebook, it's so easy to check. Just go to your profile, click that little eyeball, and you can see what other people see and make sure they're not seeing anything you don't want to see.
Key. All right.
And that is just one little example of privacy, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, Chris, what are we doing now?
We're still home, but you're having fun this week.
I am. I got a new toy. I got a new Mac Mini. It has this new processor, the M1 processor that's supposed to be screaming fast, and I'm impressed with the speed. It's pretty quick, but you know, whenever you get a new device, it's always fast and and cool. But that's pretty cool. I'm really enjoying it, and that's what we're presenting on here. So hopefully everything will work good for us today.
And it's just a little, I don't know.
It's
a
almost
little box.
8 inches in square and not very thick at all. You've probably seen them.
You just plug the monitor and wireless keyboard and everything into it, and
Right.
it works.
Okay, and so that's kind of what we're doing here today. We want to thank our premium members. We are member supported. Our premium members are what makes our work possible, and thank you so much.
And let's say hi to a few of them. Hi to Liz Milford from Ohio, Chuck Parker from Burlington, New Jersey, Judy, cool Judy, hello. Bill Olive Cousin, Richard Clarkson said that he knew when he got a friend request what was going on, and he told his friends to hide their friend list. Good job. Is the Mac Mini the same size as a Roku? No, it's bigger.
It's a little bit bigger, but not much. It's pretty close. Pretty cool. All right. Well, a reminder, our Backstage Pass is for our premium members. It's an online meeting after this show using Zoom. You get the link from an email that Chris sends out, or you can go to your member login page on our website, geeksontour.com, and click the link there. There were some issues that I think have been cleared up on the links. So if you're still having a problem,
pretty sure all the links work.
all right. And if they don't, we can blame the boss here. All right. Let's get started.
So our guest today is Phil May from the UK. That rhymes, Phil, you know that? And he is a certified data privacy professional with a bunch of letters after his name. But I don't want to talk about that first. First, you need to know that we knew him when we met Phil and his family when they were living in an RV here in the United States. And any of our longtime RV members will recognize him.
Great.
He's always been into technology, as we have. You can see in that picture in the upper right that he and Jim would co-teach some seminars at the RV rallies. And then we enjoyed teaching with them so much, we had our own rally. Phil's company was called Techno RV. It's still around under new ownership, still great. We are Geeks on Tour, and that made Techno Geeks. And I even have a cup from those days. So
yeah, Techno Geek Learning Rally. How about that?
Let's welcome Phil.
Hey. Hey, Phil.
Hey, gosh, so great to see you guys, and welcome. Hi, everybody.
And where are you today?
So I'm calling this is my my work from home office, as we're all working from home at the moment in the UK because of lockdown and because of the pandemic and COVID. In Bexhill, which, to put it on the map for everybody, is you've got London. If you head straight down south till you get to the coast, there's a little town called Bexhill. It's kind of a sleepy older town, nestled between, you might have heard of Eastbourne on one side, Hastings on the other side, and about 30 miles from Brighton. So it's.
And don't you call that the southern coast, or it's the warm coast, right? It's like Florida to England.
Yeah, actually, well, they're called. Was he going to Eastbourne? It actually says the Sunshine Coast. Welcome to the Sunshine
Coast.
Sunshine
Coast. There we go.
Yeah. Not Florida, trust me.
And we visited you there once and had a lovely time, and I sure hope we get to do so again one of these days.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
Yep.
So your title now, tell us about your job now. How did you get so corporate after living on an RV in the United States? And what is your job now?
It's a real shocker, isn't it? Sometimes I have to pinch myself, and I love those days in the RV and the Techno RV, and I miss all of our wonderful customers who we used to have, and you guys, and it was just a wonderful time. But time marches on, and so when we came back to the UK, I had this, I guess, the sort of the interesting and good situation to be in, to sort of say, well, what do I really want to do? And so I looked and thought hard, and one thing that had always been at the back of my mind, something that was interesting, is this whole concept of data privacy, and we're going to get to talk about it a lot more. But it was what I decided to do is, rather than just sort of sit on the sidelines and kind of moan and say, oh, isn't it terrible? Look at what these companies have done. And so, well, okay, get involved. So I retrained. Took my exams. That was a bit of a shocker because they were a lot harder than I expected, and then set about getting myself a proper job. And there's a wonderful company, Hastings Direct, that I work for now, where I am the data protection executive. I work for a fantastic boss who he used to be the sort of data protection, data privacy person for the whole of the police force in the UK. So he has so much experience and some very cool stories. So that's me. That's what I'm doing now.
You sat for exams specifically for data privacy, yes?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's called the CIPI. It's an American company, actually, the IAPP, the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and they have a number of different qualifications. So the CIPI, CIPP/E, is European Data Protection exam. So talking about GDPR mostly, and then CPM, which is privacy management. So if you are in a company, how do you manage your privacy across the business?
So does United States have similar certifications?
Yes, so you do have certifications. The challenge in the US, well, one of the challenges in the US, is that there is no federal privacy law at the moment. They've been talking about it for ages, and maybe the new administration will actually bring one into play, which would be great if it did. So you have this in the US. It's more complicated because you have this patchwork quilt of state laws, even city laws actually, where have enacted different bits of privacy that companies need to be aware of. So you've got, you may have heard of the California Privacy Act, the CCPA. I think Washington's done quite a bit. A number of different sort of more progressive states have started to step up and try and limit some of the companies in what they're able to do. So it's fingers crossed that it will go, but it's hard, for companies to try and learn. If you say, well, what would you get certified in? It's so broad, and it's broad for companies. Sorry, it's hard for companies to comply because it depends on which state they're based in, and actually it's where the person lives rather than where the state is.
So we will bring it down to a personal level and talk about Google and Facebook and stuff like that in a little bit. But I think it is a huge point that unless we have big agreed upon privacy protections, that it's hard for anybody to know what to do. And the EU's GDPR is the first one that is starting to provide us with that. And that's what you know so much about. So tell us, first, what does GDPR stand for? And if you could explain what it is, that'd be
right.
Great.
So General Data Protection Regulation. It's a European-wide piece of legislation that regulates how companies must protect personal information. So it's sort of got a lot of airtime because data protection legislation has been around for years. 20 or 30 years. There's been the Data Protection Act in the UK, for example. But what is new about the GDPR? One of the things that's new about it is the fines are so much bigger. So companies can now be fined 4% of their global worldwide revenue. So if you're a company like Facebook, that's a lot of money, and so that's one of the things that sort of has got people so to sit up and start thinking about, I really need to pay attention.
So it's not just a law; it's a law and an enforcement process.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's European-wide, so each of the countries has its own regulator, if you will. So in the UK, it's regulated by what's called the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office. France has one called CNIL. Germany has one that I'm not even going to be able to begin to pronounce. And each one of those will regulate the companies that are established in their territory, in their country, and monitor them and fine them if they think it's appropriate. You might have heard there's some big ones like Marriott Hotels. They got hit last year, I think, with about $180 million fine for their breach. The British Airways was another big one. Those are probably a couple of the ones of note. I think Facebook, they've got so many fines. They're hard to keep track now, but
yeah. All right. So then what are the guiding principles of the GDPR?
Right. Okay, brilliant. So I could talk all day, but I promised you that I wouldn't about GDPR. But one of the things that makes it different as a legislation is that it's principles based. So rather than saying you have to do this, you have to do that, and in specific, it gives these sort of guiding principles to companies and then says, you go and figure it out. We're not going to tell you how to do it, but you need to go and figure it out. So that's part of the challenge. But there are basically 6 of these principles. They're in the main fundamental Article 5 of GDPR. The first one is lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. So if a company wants to collect data, personal data, all the time we're talking about personal data, they need to do it lawfully. You can't just go around sneakily taking things and finding things and saying, okay, we'll have some of that. It needs to be fair. And that's, of course, a hard one. What do you mean by fair? Well, there's a sort of like, well, would the average person think that this is a reasonable use of their data? Do they think that, or would they think that it would be put them at a disadvantage, or they didn't know, they didn't expect it? So those are some of the things around fairness. And coupled to that is transparent. Did you as a customer, when you were interacting with the company, were you made aware that your data was going to be collected? Were you made aware of how it was going to be used? That type of thing. So that's the first one: lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. The second one is a principle called purpose limitation. So what that means is if I say to you and you're my customer, I'd like to collect your information for your membership of a tennis club, for example. Fine, name, address. Okay, I need that because I need to invoice you. I need to print cards so we can keep track of our members and so on. However, if I then sell that information to a marketing company to then start sending you email messages about sports equipment, that would contravene GDPR in a number of different ways, but it would also, one of the main ones would be the purpose limitation. You weren't told, or I didn't tell you when you were signing up that that's what I was going to be doing with your data. So I would have contravened the principle of purpose limitation. The third one is data minimization. So GDPR holds companies to account to think, well, given my purpose, given what it is that I'm trying to do, what's the bare minimum personal information that I need in order to achieve that purpose? I can't say to you, well, for the take the example of the membership club, I need that information, but it would be nice to know, let's say your details about your family or your height and your fitness level, and just because it might be useful in the future. I could do that, but I would have to explain a different purpose in order to be able to do it. So companies have to do what they say they're going to do and stick to that. So that's purpose limitation. The fourth one is accuracy. So if a company collects and stores and retains your personal information, they have an obligation to keep it accurate. So if there are any inaccuracies, like maybe the name's spelt wrongly or your address is slightly incorrect, they have an obligation to correct that. And in fact, you have a personal right, subject right as a citizen, to contact them and say, that's wrong, you need to change that. And they should oblige you. And then just two more left: storage limitation. Once somebody has collected your information, they can't just say, well, we're going to hang on to it for as long as we want. I think we talked the other day about the track and trace app, the first version that the British government came out with, and it was terrible. There's another story, but the first version of that, they said they want to hang on to everybody's information for 100 years. And when that became public, which it should do, because they thought it was like 100 years, that's ridiculous. Why do you need that? I mean, pandemic's probably going to be gone in 2 years. So that would contravene the storage limitation principle. You can only store it for as long as you need it, and no more than that. After that, you've got to delete it. And then finally, security. If you're going to take somebody's information, personal information, you have to keep it secure. So you can't sort of just be willy-nilly and sharing it inadvertently, or because hackers could get hold of it, or it could get lost and damaged in some way. So that's a principle. So you put all those together, that gives you an idea of what companies need to do as they go through collecting this personal information. And that's kind of my day job, is interacting with the various parts of the business as they go about doing certain things, saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And the whole purpose is trying to keep our customers as safe as possible. Obviously we're in a business to make money, but at the same time, my job is particularly to keep us thinking about, are we doing the right thing for our customers?
Well, Phil, that was just great. Really. I mean, I've heard all sorts of little bits and pieces about GDPR from small businesses over here, that because their business is on a website. I mean, we have some customers in the EU, so we would fall under those regulations. And I've been told Absolutely. Several things about stuff we need to do, real specifics. But I love those 6 principles. They do make a lot of sense. One thing that you mentioned, the security, that just popped. How do you define privacy versus security? What's the difference? They're really two very different things, but we often use them almost interchangeably.
Yeah, some people sort of think they're the same thing. they go hand in glove. There's a bit of a flippant saying that you can have security without privacy, but you can't have privacy without security. So if you think about that,
I remembered you saying that the other way around,
I just
and it
got to
didn't
make sure I get it the right way around.
Okay.
So
That does.
privacy is about keeping things not sharing things with other people who aren't supposed to. So, in terms of my privacy, I have different, you can think of, there's 3 different aspects to privacy that they talk about. There's information privacy. So that would be my information about me, my height, my weight, my name, my address. These are all my information privacy. You've then got bodily privacy. So characteristics about me as a person, as an individual, my facial features, my genetic makeup, biometric information, retinal, fingerprint, that sort of stuff. And then there is physical, it's escaped me now, but sort of location. It's information about and my home and my correspondence. So they're covered in the, I have a right to privacy in my home. That would be contravened by, for instance, photographers with drones coming. When I'm in my back garden, I have a right to privacy in there. If a drone's coming over and if I was a celebrity and photographers are trying to do that, then they would be contravening my rights, my right to privacy, because that's a private space. If I'm walking down the street, that's kind of different, because there isn't the same expectation of privacy when you're in a public space. So that's privacy. Security, on the other hand, is how my information is kept from unauthorized access. So what is there then? And there are techniques and things that companies can do and that I can do to keep my information from other people, in terms of keeping it as secure as possible.
So bringing that down to like a Facebook level, privacy is who can see what you've put on there. Yep. Security is your login and your passwords,
Absolutely.
Allowing you to get in and not allowing anybody
keeping
else
other people out, keeping the wrong people from being able to see that information and circumvent the password or the protections.
Okay, great. In case our audience hasn't gotten the idea, this is kind of a general education session we're doing today, because it really is so important.
And I'm glad you said that, because it's got people, might be thinking, well, what's the point of all of this? Well, I think we're going to be getting into is that as technology has developed, we're in a different place than we were even just 10 years ago. And I think when I first started in 2006, we bought the motorhome and set off on our little travels and so on, Facebook didn't even exist. And that's not that long ago. If there was MySpace, wasn't it? Was around, and then I was like, and I wanted to do a blog, so I had to write it myself. And so, if you think when it first came out, it's like, this is wonderful, it's fantastic, it's a great way of sharing with people back in England, and I embraced it fully and was, and I loved it. But what has happened is technology has evolved so quickly that we've got into a different place that nobody really expected, and because of that, there are these unintended and unexpected consequences that can happen because of what's around, and we'll talk more about what those are. That people, I think, it's not that you want to panic about them, but just be aware, and that's sort of my mantra is make sure people are aware.
Because with a lot of them, there's really not a whole lot that you as a single person can do. We need these things like the GDPR. Go ahead and put up when we are in front of audiences and we talk about anything technology, we always get questions about security, and people have a wide range of concerns, and they range everywhere from on the left there, the very sad face, I'd say almost angry. There are people that just don't trust anything. They say that they've deleted their Facebook, they've deleted their Google and their Amazon. They'll only use the web and incognito. They just don't trust anything. They don't want to come to our classes and learn about what to do because they don't want to do it. I think they're just missing out on so much. But on the other end of the spectrum is just as bad. people who, I say, well, you're going to have to give this information and this information and this information in order to do X, Y, Z. They say, oh, that's no problem. My life's an open book. I don't care. Any data they want is okay with me. And yeah, we got 2 responses to our announcement of this show today that I thought represented both sides. So what do you say? Let me see. Which side do you want to pick first? Respond to one of those sides.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I can just tease that apart a little bit, I think I share sentiments with both sides, because with security comes inconvenience. And so the more the safer you are and the more secure everything is, the more inconvenient it can be. Your life can become inconvenient. You would say, okay, I don't use Google Maps because of worries about that. Well, that kind of sucks, because I kind of like Google Maps. It has some really neat features, and when somebody tells me I love beer, as you know, so a good brewery, I put it into my Google Maps and save it and so on. And so you build that up over time. But
I'll bet your map is pretty full with those.
It is pretty big. Yeah. We should
And I
share
miss
it.
going to breweries with you, buddy.
Oh man, there's some brilliant ones, and we won't digress about the UK, but then save that for another show. But I think also those 2 sentiments relate to somebody's experience. So, and by that I mean, it's easy to say my life's an open book. I don't have any worries. I'm not concerned. That's because nothing bad has happened to you. And everything's great until it's not great, and then it's really bad. And so, you'll find sometimes people who have had bad things happen to them, their identities stolen, money stolen from their account. I mean, there's lots of bad things that can happen. Are more on that left-hand side, saying, I have deleted my Facebook account, or I'm very careful about this, and I take these steps because I've been in that situation and I know what it feels like. So I think our advice is to say, let's not have everybody have to go through the pain of losing money or having their identity stolen, but figure out what are the sort of things to be aware of, and simple things where you can still benefit from this great technology that's available, but at the same time not give people the keys to the kingdom. I mean, I've got one example when I was thinking about this, because I thought it would probably come up, is there is a trend that some parents like to share information about their children on their Facebook page. And in fact, my sister is the same. And I said to her that it's called sharenting. I said that's a bit problematic for a number of reasons. Is you're sharing your personal information about your child. You might not have spoken to them about it. They may not have given their consent, and children should still be consulted, even though there's a legal age of privacy consent, which is 13 in the UK. Even below that, the law recommends that and requires that you have that conversation with children. And so, in fact, Barclays did a survey and put out a press release that they reckon, but by 2030, this information that has been shared will cost £670 million, because hackers are able to use that information and piece together personal information about those children who then become young adults. So by 2030, they will be able to then steal their identities and open bank accounts. And because think about it, you think, oh, it's just a birthday. I'm only saying, well, if you blow the picture up, you can see that she's 3 years old or 5 years old. And now I know her name, I know her date of birth, and it's very easy to deduce if you've got access to somebody's Facebook page where they live. Boom, you've got somebody's identity.
And you gave an example when we were talking before about somebody who actually lost their house because of
exactly the identity theft. So it's not always just money that you could lose. This couple came back from holiday; they'd had their identity stolen, and what the tenant, the new owners really had done is spoofed it's called the HM Land Registry, which is like in the UK, the government is the title company that holds all of the records about who owns what, and they had transferred the house over into their name because they were able to spoof the identity of the previous owners. So when they came back, they called the cops and said, "Can you evict these people?" They're like, "No, they own it. You're gonna have to take them to court and let the court decide what happened." And so now they've got to where they're going to live. They're 2 years in a hotel. What about the kids? What about all their stuff? It can ruin people's lives.
Yeah, and that really sounds like a movie. That it's an old movie. I think it was in the late '90s with Sandra Bullock.
The Net.
The Net.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to see a scary movie about the worst case that can happen with identity theft, that's it.
Yeah.
It's fiction, but
it's scary.
I think
it's kind of real. It can happen.
Yeah. Let's see. So there certainly are scary things that can happen. And another one that I have from reading a book called Future Crimes, and we have a slide on all these at the end. The Homeland Security, the United States Homeland Security, was monitoring Facebook. Now, can they? I mean, I say that you can make things so only your friends can see them, not public. But a lot of people post things publicly, and oh no, I know this particular example was Twitter, and there is no privacy on Twitter. So if you post something on Twitter, yes, anybody can see it. And somebody was traveling from the UK to California, and they wrote their friend using Twitter and saying, "Oh, we're going to come and destroy America." Now, what's that mean to a Brit?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that expression, but maybe it just means, like just have fun, just
some good crack.
Yeah, have some good crack.
party and get drunk and all that. Well, Homeland Security flagged that, took them off the plane when they hit Los Angeles, put them in jail for like a week, and then sent them back home. So now, is there anything in particular that person could have done about that? I don't know, but it's just something that we need to start being aware of.
I think it's also some of the dangers where you don't have these overarching legal frameworks which will protect people. There was a situation where there's a number of companies that got in the press where they were, as a part of their routine hiring, they were requiring candidates to share their Facebook profile with them. So essentially give them the password so they could troll through their Facebook, having a look, sort of seeing what they could find. Luckily with GDPR, that's not lawful. Even consent in that situation is invalid because consent has to be freely given. And in those situations where you've got an imbalance of power, of course, it's not freely given because you want the job. And so you're sort of beholden. You think, well, I can't really say no. But that's that was a bad situation. There's another one with the pandemic. A lot of people are working from home. And so some companies in the US decided that it would be, they need to monitor their employees. So now they're requiring them to have their camera turned on their laptop the whole time while they're supposedly working, so that their boss can keep a track on them and just see what they're doing. Luckily, in Europe, that would be illegal because it would be disproportionate. It's appropriate to keep track of your employees and to make sure that they are behaving as they should, but it's disproportionate to say I'm going to monitor you 100% of all of my employees just because maybe one person might, you've got suspicion about them. So
yeah, nasty stuff can happen.
Yeah.
We had a question here. I don't know who David Carroll is, but maybe you do. Can you see that?
So much here.
Did David Carroll ever get his requested data? He helped to open our minds so much here in the USA.
I don't know who David Carroll is.
Okay.
No, sorry about that.
Maybe.
I'll make a note of that. That would be, you piqued my interest now.
And then one person asked, when the GDPR collects fines, where does that money go?
That's a good question. So I'm not sure about in the rest of Europe, but in the UK, it goes to the British government, which is unfortunate. Because the ICO which is the office that is like the FCA, is like any sort of government entity, relatively small, relatively underfunded. So in what tends to happen is if the ICO puts a fine, say they want to fine Google says, okay, we're going to take your call, we're going to contest it in court. We have gazillion dollars, we have 500 lawyers, we're going to tie you up in red tape, blah, blah, blah. And the ICO probably has some chap who's like me, who's sitting there thinking, oh my God, now it's me versus Google. If they could keep the fines, then that might, even the playing field a little bit. But unfortunately, no, that doesn't work that way. So great question.
And the GDPR is for the EU, but UK is no longer part of the EU, right?
No, we're not. That's right. So basically what happened is the EU said, okay, here's GDPR, and it's a broad set of, there's 100 articles, it's like 150 pages of legislation, but each country has to make it their own law. So essentially what happened is the UK incorporated the articles of GDPR into their privacy legislation, which is called the Data Protection Act, with a revision of the Data Protection Act, which is the 2018 GDPR, Data Protection Act. So now you've got the UK GDPR, applied GDPR in the UK, but it's the same. Now we've split, we've still got UK GDPR, which at the moment is still the same as European GDPR. Whether it'll diverge in the future, I'm not sure. Hopefully not. We then got into these interesting things about, well, can we share information between Europe and the UK? Interestingly, you'll laugh at this. There was a big thing in the privacy world, that there was a court case where a campaigner called Max Schrems basically said to Facebook that it was unlawful to send his information to the US because there's a worry that it wasn't going to be given the same level of security as it would in the EU because of the overarching powers that the government has, the NSA and so on, in terms of surveillance.
Talk to us a little bit about terms of service. I mean, if you want to use a service on the internet, they show you this terms of service. And if you want to use a service, you have to say yes. So if you want to use a service, why bother reading the terms? And I know you have a recent example of.
Yeah, I do. So the terms of service, or the privacy notice. So what are they going to do with your data?
Privacy notice, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would always recommend somebody to do that, and that applies to apps as well, by the way. So when you choose an app and you go to download it, always have a look and say, well, what is the information is it's asking for, and is that reasonable? Does that make sense for it to be able to, like, if can't think of an example, but it's like, well, why would it need to access my microphone? Why would it need to access my GPS location data if it's just doing something relatively benign?
Or I have one. It was some kind of photo related app, and it wanted my contact list.
Right, exactly.
I said, sorry,
it doesn't need it, does it?
No reason you need my contact list. No.
So in Europe, that would contravene the principle of purpose limitation and data minimization. It doesn't need that information in order to be able to give the service that you're doing. So always read the privacy notice. And the other example that I had is I was written to out of the blue saying, did I want to participate in a COVID tracking app, track and trace? And I thought, yeah, that sounds good. Be a upstanding citizen, send my information. But then I thought, well, being in privacy, I'll read the privacy notice. And they were saying that they were going to keep all of my information and my email address and my cell phone number for 20 years. And I was like, you don't need to keep all of that information in some database somewhere for 20 years, and that they could pretty much do whatever it is that they want with it, not just see whether I've got, COVID or had COVID in the past. But who knows? I mean, some bright spark in the future might say, let's mine that for genetic information and look how many people are predisposed to some, condition or other.
And yeah, good example. But then let's look at the flip side of that. We talked the other day about the COVID tracing, the contact tracing that, wonder of wonders, Apple and Google cooperated to build a feature, a platform that could help us contact trace without invading our privacy. And yet it's not being implemented here in the States. I think maybe 6 states have adopted it. And I think because we're all so freaked out about privacy, but this could actually save lives. So, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. And, there's that. I looked into that because there was the UK government did a version of this app which was terrible. That was the one that was going to keep you data for 100 years. They could identify exactly who you were, who had got COVID, and that's very personal, private information. And GDPR, there's a subset of data, so it protects normal data, and then there's an extra special category of data called special category data, which is things like health data, religious affiliation, sexual orientation. These are very much more sensitive bits of information. Companies have to be much more careful about those. So they just contravened all of that. But luckily, the new version uses that Google Apple privacy feature and was very widely adopted. A lot of people use it, and it was I think gave people a lot of reassurance that because you would check into an establishment, you'd scan the QR code, and it would keep track in a very secure way as to if that establishment had a case of COVID. It would then pop up on your phone and say, you've been in there, you need to self-isolate. But what it's important is it put me in the driving seat. I made a decision that I need to self-isolate. I made a decision as to whether or not I want to share that information, that type of thing.
Just another example. Oh, what's this? Concerned about Chromebook tracking, user profiling, particular for students using Chromebooks for distance learning. Fits Phil's example of sharing child's birthday. Does the GDPR address that?
So the information that would be shared would be covered under GDPR, and again, it needs to be lawful. The problem is, a lot of the companies that are doing that don't reside in the EU, and up until now haven't really stuck by the letter of the law, let's put it that way. And so that's for one reason why I don't use Chrome as my browser, just because I don't want Google to be able to track all of the information of which websites I go to, what gets entered, typed in. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have pretty much all of that information. Should they? No, it would be against GDPR, but who's going to find out? They can do it until they're caught and fined, and sometimes even then that doesn't stop them. As you know, like Facebook's been fined 5 billion, I think it was, wasn't it? And then their stock price went up.
Another example of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is, you mentioned Google Maps. And a feature that I know everybody loves is being able to see the traffic, where right. There's bad traffic and good traffic up above, ahead of you. But that uses data getting from users that are on the road, right? So you have to give permission to Google to use your location, but this traffic information does not have any personally identifiable information, right? And do you trust that?
No.
Okay.
100% not.
But
well, think about it, because they know who I am, right? They've got on my phone, they know everything about me. And if you look at the what is collected when you download the app, it will tell you in terms of the settings and the information that gets collected and so on. So it might not know that it's Phil May, but it knows the IMEI tracking information about my phone. And quite frankly, if you can track my phone, you can track me. It's the same thing, and Google knows the same thing. I mean, another example of that purpose limitation would be, I point to, and I don't want to pick on Google, that's a bit unfair, but they paid $2 billion for Fitbit. and you think, well, that's interesting. Google and Fitbit, why they're not a health company? Why would they want information? And you think, well, they're a data company. So what could you do if you had millions and millions of people's information about how much they exercise, when they exercise, their average heart rate, any of that information? Maybe what would that be worth to pharmaceutical companies, to insurance companies, life insurance companies? What would it be worth to pension providers? In fact, there was a case in the US where there was it was involving teachers in one of the Midwestern states, and the local, what do you call it, state authority, teaching authority, was requiring teachers to wear a Fitbit device and to share that information with the provider of their pension, because they said that was the only way that they could get a reasonable rate. And of course, a lot of people had a bit of an issue with that, and the unions got involved, and they had to backtrack and do that. But so that's why I talk about unexpected consequences, where as we're in this data world, best not to give people
like the
information.
device that you can plug into your car and you get better insurance rates if you're
right,
a good driver.
Yeah, a telematics we call policy. Yeah, we have those.
So there's just so many pros and cons. What do you do if you find an app that wants unneeded information? Can we submit the request to Phil May's company?
I mean, you can submit the request. A simpler thing to do is just delete the app. I don't know about you, but every now and again I go through an exercise on my phone and I just delete any app that I'm not using now, because it's so easy. You park the car, you need an app to do the thing, so you download it, and then it just sits there. I hope it's not collecting information, but it might be. I don't know. If it's been deleted, it can't collect anything, and that was one of the main reasons that I deleted Facebook off of my phone, was because I was just so concerned that the information that it was able to get from my phone in terms of my location and where I go and what I was doing, gave it this sort of access that I wasn't willing to provide, and wasn't happy to do that.
But just because somebody deletes the Facebook app, maybe even deletes their whole Facebook account, does that mean that there's no more information about them being collected by Facebook?
They've still got it all.
and other people. I mean, I say I want to be there as a defense.
Right. And so so I took a middle ground. So I deleted it off my phone, but I kept my account because, like you say, I'd rather kind of know a little bit about what's going on. But our phones are our life to a lot of extent. Now, we never thought about that when they first came on, but now smartphones do hold so much information about us. I remember seeing there's an interview, just to digress fractionally, there was an interview with Warren Buffett, and he was on camera, and the interviewer his phone rang, so he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he pulled it out, and it was like a 15-year-old Nokia 3110. I don't know if you remember those, that like a very cool old phone. And so the interviewer said, you've got a really old phone. He's like, yeah, I'm not very good with technology. And it's like, I don't believe that for a second. Warren Buffett is a very smart individual. I would wager the reason he doesn't carry one of these around with him is because he knows he's setting himself up for sharing so much information. And, hacking my account is one thing. Hacking Warren Buffett's account is a different one.
So what browser do you recommend? And I think that's a
good question. So there's a lot out there. There's sort of like a spectrum. So Firefox is good. Safari is actually pretty good if you're an Apple user. Firefox has got some good privacy features. But the one that I really like, and I think is just the gold standard for privacy, is one called Brave, Brave. It's free to download. They also have a very cool and interesting approach to adverts. You can actually, when you download it and use it, you can say, I'm willing to be shown adverts, but here's how many I'm willing to see. And then what it does is it says, okay, we're going to credit your account with the money, we're going to take a little cut, but we're going to credit your account, virtual account, with the money that we earn by showing you these ads. And then you can then decide that when you go to, maybe there's a news company local news company that you like visit or whatever, you can then elect to to make a little donation using this pot of money that you've earned used by seeing those ads to that particular company. So it's a kind of cool way of putting users in control of this world of ads and ad tech.
I think the long-term idea that we all need to get is that we need to regain access of our own, or ownership of our own data. I mean,
Right.
I love all the conveniences that this data gives me, but I don't like that I don't have any control over it. It's owned by Google and it's owned by Facebook. And I think blockchain is working on that, is working on putting all our data in a place where we have control. And it's something we all just need to learn about.
Yeah, that's an interesting question you just put there. So
Yeah,
from Jody.
when WhatsApp asks for your contacts, where do those contacts go? Does it just get used within the app, or do those contacts go into La La Land, or what happens?
So WhatsApp is lawfully able to use that information, because when I downloaded, and I agree that you can use the access to my name and my telephone number. Sometimes you may want to give it access to your contacts. I suggest not. I don't agree to that. I would rather just say, here's one person. When I want to talk to them, then I would put them in. But that information does get held centrally, and you've got to ask yourself, why is it that Facebook paid, how much was it, $10 billion for WhatsApp? WhatsApp has never made a penny, and they had their business plan actually said, we don't have a business, we have no idea how we're going to make any money, but Facebook still paid 10 billion or roughly that for them back, what was it, like, I don't know, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more. And so the cynic like me would say, well, that's because now they've got access to 2 billion users worth of contact details, as well as, now they've made some changes in terms. I don't know if you saw the privacy notice that they said, and if you want to use our service, you have to consent. That's illegal under GDPR. There is no such thing as having to consent. Otherwise, it's not freely given, is it? It's like what you're saying is you're forcing me to use it. I don't have any free will in this. So, I would suggest that if you're concerned about that, don't use WhatsApp. There are other good ones around there. I use Signal, which is a very secure one. Definitely don't use Facebook Messenger. That is just, you might as well just
Facebook Messenger.
No, you might as well just post it on, take out an ad and put it on the.
But all my contacts are already there, it just makes it so easy.
We talked about it, isn't it? Convenience versus security. Where on that? Where's your slider? And fine. Nobody can tell anybody what's right and wrong. It's just, where do you feel comfortable? But what's happened to you in the past? How much are you going to? Because Tracy and I will do this all the time. It drives her crazy sometimes. She'll say, "I can never get into my account. What's the?" Because we use LastPass, and I've got 2-factor authentication and everything, and it drives her crackers because it's more inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good because
we have to start, as you said. There's nothing we can do that can prevent all this and keep us completely private, but you can at least not make it so easy for them.
Right?
So.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't make it easy for them. And I think as citizens, as voters, there are privacy is a thing now. So as your congressmen come up for election, have a look and see which ones are more privacy centric than others. Use that as the power, because that's how these things can change.
Okay, so one last question here,
and then we got to kind of wrap this thing up. Old friend of yours, Steve Masterson. Hi, Phil.
Hey, Steve. Hey, nice to see you, mate.
Is iOS still the most secure platform?
Maybe I'm biased. I should probably say that I am biased because I use an iPhone, but I believe that it is more secure. I think Apple generally is, if you think of the big tech companies, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, I think Apple gets it. Do I trust them 100%? No, but I think they try. Tim Cook, I think, has said on many times a lot of good stuff, and I see it happening. That their new Safari browser is very secure. The way that the what's it called? The where you download apps from. That's the Google one.
Skip review.
Yeah, anyhow, the store on your phone where you get the Apple
Google Play Store and Apple App
and
Store.
App Store. Yeah, so the App Store is very very tightly monitored. So they vet the companies that go there and do security assessments on them to make sure. And there's a lot of features built into iOS to stop companies, these apps, exfiltrating data. Sneakily getting information that they're not supposed to get. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it is.
It's generally accepted that Apple takes security more, but Google would contest that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, are you going to be able to join us in our after?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, see some familiar faces, hopefully.
I'll have to send the link out to you, though.
Okay.
So let me do that, and should we do the questions there then?
Okay.
All right.
I wrote them. Let's do them.
All right. Did you learn something? Anyone can see your Facebook friend list unless you A, change privacy settings, B, use only aliases, or C, you don't have any friends.
A, change your privacy settings.
Okay. GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation, and it sets data privacy laws for whom? A, the UK, B, the USA, C, the EU, or D, the world?
And it's just the EU, right?
Yep.
Although other countries can adopt the principles. I like that.
Yeah, it's sort of become the gold standard. So as countries are starting to roll out their own laws, they copy
Or
a lot
even
of their
states.
principles.
States, yeah.
True or false? In the US, it is legal for any company to collect information from you and to sell it to third parties.
I believe that's true. We don't have any overriding laws that says you can't do that.
Right.
Maybe
I think in California is probably the one that's the closest, because I think they have to declare if they're going to do that, and there's you have to actually agree that they can sell your information, from what I remember. But I'm not expert in CCPA.
Yeah. True or false? All data about you, name, address, government ID, driver's license, number, occupation, is controlled by you.
Absolutely 100% false.
Yeah, I wish.
We have no control, and that to me is the problem. And it's duplicated all sorts of places where it doesn't need to be.
All right. Google uses your location data and many others to show current traffic on local roads. They do this without using A, your permission, B, personally identifiable info, or C, the internet.
The answer is B, or at least that's what they tell us.
Because you have given them your permission when you use the app.
For location.
And
yes.
They say personally identifiable info is not used in that. All right. Well, that's it for us, I think. Did y'all learn something? I hope so.
And thank you so much, Phil, for joining us. It was great.
It's been great. I can't believe it went by so quickly.
And I just love that you have this new expertise after we haven't seen you in 5 years.
I know. It's way too long. We have this technology at our fingertips, and we just, one click and we could be chatting. So we must do it more.
Yes. Right. Okay. And so we will see you backstage. We will send you the link. This is a Zoom. This is a Zoom meeting.
So we'll see you, and we'll get over there, and we'll be back to it real quick. That's
great. Nice meeting everybody.
Yep. Sign up for our newsletters, buy the book, do all this cool stuff. And
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jim.
And we're Geeks on Tour.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay. I can probably send it to him in, well, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, it should be in the email. I did send him the same.